Stay tuned. Stay tuned for your weekend break from the mind-controlling mainstream. An hour of resistance to complacency and the status quo. 60 minutes of grassroots edutainment for political, social, economic, and environmental justice. Voices of dissent with sounds from the underground. Some truth and sanity after the lies of Limbaugh and Hannity. Here's your host, repping the have-nots against the have-plot, Douggie, the Abolitionist.
Yes, the rhythm, the rebel. Without a pause, I'm lowering my level. The hard drama, where you never been amazing.
Harder than ever, worse for better, we endeavor to grind, moving with my family together. We on the jet fuel, pushing to the highest level. Call me your highness rebel, smoking the finest ever. Call me green, I'm restricting my mind forever. My Ohio, we ain't coming down no time if ever. Jet fuel in the air, middle fingers everywhere, 100 deep up in here, yeah. We don't care if it's the mile high club round here. Jet fuel in the air, middle fingers everywhere, 100 deep up in here. We don't care if it's the mile high club round here. I got your medication. See, we lacing the nation. What we blaze is amazing. Stoner of the year here. I'm the dream that you're chasing. If you take another hit, I know your heart be racing. See, I be burning with burner because me and Burner know Mary's a very good earner. She be turning up and you can never get enough. You can never spend it up. You just wanna spend it up. No room for hesitation, cause if you're waiting, people taking medication, be gone. They say green thumb, tell us why you waited so long. This ain't no pre-run, homie, what we serve is the bomb. Jet fuel in the air, middle fingers everywhere, 100 deep up in here, yeah. Fingers, we don't care if it's the mile high club round here. Jet fuel in the air, middle fingers everywhere, 100 deep up in here, yeah. The haters, we don't care if it's the mile high club round here. Harder than ever, worse for better, we endeavor to grind, moving with my family together. We on the jet fuel, pushing to the highest level. Call me your highness rebel, smoking the finest ever. Call me green, I'm restricting my mind forever. My Ohio, we ain't coming down no time if ever. Jet fuel in the air, middle fingers everywhere, 100 deep up in here, yeah. We don't care if it's the mile high club round here. Jet fuel in the air, middle fingers everywhere, 100 deep up in here. We don't care if it's the mile high club round here. I got your medication. See, we lacing the nation. What we blaze is amazing. Stoner of the year here. I'm the dream that you're chasing. If you take another hit, I know your heart be racing. I be burning for burner, because me and Burner know Mary's a very good earner. She be turning up and you can never get enough. You can never spend it up, you just wanna spend it up. No room for hesitation, cause if you're waiting, people taking medication be gone. They say green thumb, tell us why you waited so long. This ain't no pre-run, homie, what we serve is the bomb. Jet fuel in the air, middle fingers everywhere, 100 deep up in here, yeah. And my fingers, we don't care if it's the mile high club round here. Jet fuel in the air, middle fingers everywhere, 100 deep up in here, yeah. The haters, we don't care if it's the mile high club round here.
Of human kindness. But if what is human in human beings has not been destroyed even now, then evil will never conquer. The days ahead will be dark and frightening, but we must fight for the sacred. We must fight for life. We must fight the forces of death. We fight not only for ourselves, but for those who will come after us, our children. Revolt is a political necessity. It is a moral imperative. We must not be complicit. We must live in truth. The moment we defy power in any form, we are victorious. The moment we stand with the oppressed and accept being treated like the oppressed, we are victorious. The moment we hold up a flickering light in the darkness for others to see, we are victorious. The moment we thwart the building of a pipeline or a fracking site, we are victorious. The moment we keep a mother faced with deportation with her children, we are victorious. The moment we mass in the streets to defy police violence, we are victorious. We must turn the tide of fear. We must, by taking the streets, make the ruling elites frightened of us. To sit idle, to refuse to defy these forces, to by our silence be complicit, will atrophy and wither our souls. It will leave us husks of human beings. This is not only a fight for life, it is a fight that gives life. It is the expression of faith. It is the belief that no matter how great is the power of evil, the power of love is greater. I do not, in the end, fight fascists because I will win. I fight fascists because they are fascists. Thank you.
WIGO AM 1570, Atlanta's Incredible Radio. Thanks for tuning in for Hour 2 of Voices of Dissent with Sounds from the Underground. All right, we're about to recap the second half of this week's headlines. In Libya, United Nations warns of humanitarian crisis as fighting escalates. Israel to deport HR2 researcher over alleged boycott. Internet activists call for release of Swedish programmer Ola Bini. In Colorado, schools shut down as hunt continues for woman infatuated with Columbine, and she apparently committed suicide. Alan Dershowitz sued for defamation in Epstein sex abuse case. Rutgers University Union reaches tentative contract deal with administration. Nilesh Tabay, noted West Papuan peace activist, dies at 55. Attorney General Barr to release redacted Mueller report, which was just released a few days ago. You hear it all over corporate media. John Bolton praises Monroe Doctrine as U.S. sanctions Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua. New U.S. sanctions to target remittances and companies doing business in Cuba. North Korea tests new weapon, rejects role of U.S. Secretary of State. Trump administration to end reporting on size of U.S. nuclear arsenal. Former Peruvian President Alan Garcia dies by suicide as police move in. Teen who threatened Colorado schools dead of self-inflicted gunshot. Philadelphia DA clears path for Mumia Abu Jamal to appeal murder conviction. That's great news this week. New York grants parole to Brinks heist getaway driver Judith Clark. Ivanka Trump says her father offered to make her World Bank president. Energy Secretary Rick Perry reportedly planning to resign. 16-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg greeted by Pope Francis. London climate activists chain themselves to Jeremy Corbyn's home. 62 arrested as climate activists stage die-in outside NYC City Hall. Mueller report shows no Trump-Russia conspiracy but leaves open questions of obstruction. Trump administration to spend $40 million on new immigration detention camps. Central American migrants claim assault by Mexican authorities. ACLU warns of fascist militia holding migrant border crossers at gunpoint. Nicaragua bans anti-government protests, arresting dozens. Mali's government resigns as protesters condemn ethnic violence. In Sudan, mass protests demand civilian rule after Omar al-Bashiri's ouster. Bangladeshi teen burned to death after reporting sexual assault. Saudi court suspends hearing for 11 women's rights activists who face torture. Journalist Lyra McKee shot dead amid North Ireland riots. Florida Police Department to investigate officers filmed brutalizing teenagers. New York City approves climate plan meant to curb emissions from big buildings. New Yorkers rally against proposed fracked gas pipeline. And finally, CIA Director Gina Haspel confronted over torture during rare public appearance. That wraps up the second half of this week's headlines. Let's get started with the show, Dante. And, well, we're going to play, I'll play this Ilhan Omar clip, the attack on Ilhan Omar from Donald Trump and the fascist right-wing Republicans attacking Ilhan Omar for her speaking out on not only just oppression in general, and we need to stand behind Representative Ilhan Omar. She is facing massive death threats from the alt-right, these right-wing racists, and Donald Trump, who has made her out to be a boogie woman. So please support Representative Ilhan Omar. We're going to play that. Then after that, I got a brief clip to play from Bill McKibben, climate scientist, activist, his most recent book, Falter. And then we'll be joined with Brittany with our upcoming events and actions. And then finally with Dr. Uma on the health benefits of cannabis and the cannabinoid system on this 420 holiday. Hope you're having a good 420. All right, so please stick around. Should be a great rest of this hour. Stick around.
Minnesota freshman Congress member Ilhan Omar says death threats against her have spiked in numbers since President Trump tweeted a video juxtaposing her image with footage of the 9/11 attacks. Trump posted the 43-second video Friday with the caption, "We will never forget." The president's tweet intercut video of the World Trade Center towers burning with video of Omar speaking about the increasing attacks on the Muslim American community after 9/11. Omar was speaking at a Council on American Islamic Relations event last month.
Far too long, we have lived with the discomfort of being a second-class citizen. And frankly, I'm tired of it, and every single Muslim in this country should be tired of it. CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
In fact, founded in 1994, Omar's spokesperson later said she misspoke and, quote, meant to refer to the fact that the organization had doubled in size after the September 11th attacks, end of quote. Congress member Omar's comments were originally taken out of context and circulated by right-wing media from the Daily Caller to Fox News. In a statement, Congressmember Omar said, quote, "Since the president's tweet Friday evening, I have experienced an increase in direct threats on my life, many directly referencing or replying to the president's video. This is endangering lives. It has to stop."
Hashtag Stand With Ilhan trended as conservative voices continued to attack Congressmember Omar over the weekend. Trump said on Twitter Monday he's heading to Minnesota. Omar tweeted, "The great state of Minnesota, where we don't only welcome immigrants, we send them to Washington." Hashtag No Ban Act. In New York City, Yemeni bodega owners responded to the attacks against Congressmember Omar by announcing they're boycotting the sale and purchase of the New York Post over its front page attack on Omar. The Murdoch-owned daily paper featured an image of the burning Twin Towers on 9/11, referencing Omar's comment out of context. 9/11 was some people did something, and the words, "Here's your something," in large print over the photo. The Yemeni American Merchants Association said the cover provoked hatred and targeted people of the Muslim faith. To talk more about Congressmember Ilhan Omar, we're joined by Mustafa Bayoumi, the author of This Muslim American Life, Dispatches from the War on Terror. His recent Guardian piece headlined, "Ilhan Omar has become the target of a dangerous hate campaign." Mustafa Bayoumi is an English professor at Brooklyn College and City University of New York, also author of How Does It Feel to Be a Problem, Being Young and Arab in America. Welcome back to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us. Talk about what others have said over time. This is the argument you make in your piece. Ilhan Omar has become the target of a dangerous hate campaign. Give us a few quotes.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you just have even a short-term memory, I think you can remember that George W. Bush, the former president of the United States, said something to the effect of, when referring to the 9/11 attackers, said something to the effect of, well, these folks committed this act.
Wait, actually, we've got that clip.
Forces of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act.
To find the folks who committed this act.
Yeah, so that, to my ear, that sounds quite similar to what Ilhan Omar said. And in fact, George Bush is saying it to the whole country, and he's not considered to be anti-American for that statement whatsoever. So, in fact, I think what Ilhan Omar is saying is completely within the boundaries of what is normal political discourse in this country. And we could go on. That's one example. Another example would be, Ilhan Omar is now accused of claiming that her detractors will say that she claims that Jewish people in the United States suffer from a dual loyalty campaign. Well, in fact, actually, she did not say that. So I think it's important to qualify what she did say and what she did not say. She talked about questions of allegiance, and if we listen to your last segment and we talk about anti-BDS laws, in fact, those are, allegiance laws that are built into now the very system of the United States. However, somebody did say something that was, in fact, claiming dual loyalty for Jewish Americans, and that would be our president now, Donald Trump.
Explain what he said.
He said something to the effect of, when speaking to a Jewish American group, he said something about...
The Jewish Republican Coalition in Las Vegas.
In fact, that's right. And he said, well, let me talk about your prime minister. So he referred to Benjamin Netanyahu as their prime minister.
How do you account for this enormous campaign that has been launched against this freshman Congress member in terms of by so many conservatives and right-wing groups in the country and by the president himself? In your sense, what's behind it?
Well, on one level, it's very clear. Ilhan Omar is one of two Muslim women elected to Congress, the first two Muslim women elected to Congress. That gives her, I think, a certain level of prominence along with a certain level of vulnerability. Not only that, but of course, being openly Muslim, she wears hijab, she covers her hair. She's a refugee. She's an immigrant. She's a black woman. Occupies all of those vulnerable positions in our society today. But it's not only that, I believe, if you ask me, because if she were a quiet black refugee woman from Somalia, Muslim who covered her hair and all of that stuff, then I think people would love to trot her out for the optics alone. But she's not a quiet congresswoman. In fact, I think that's a great thing. In fact, she seems to be a highly principled and highly effective politician, even just in the short time that she's been in Congress. So I think that, in fact, she's a scary figure to a lot of people who are on the right, and even sometimes to the mainstream establishment of the Democratic Party as well.
That was going to be my follow-up. Well, what about the reaction of the establishment of the Democratic Party to the threats against her and to the scapegoating of her?
Yes, well, I think that what we saw was, in fact, in some ways a litmus test of where the Democratic leadership and also those vying for the presidency lie on one of the more important issues of our day, which is, Islamophobia fundamentally. What we saw with Nancy Pelosi's statement, for example, on Ilhan Omar was, I thought, extremely disappointing. I thought she was refusing to name Ilhan Omar explicitly, was not didn't come out in her defense, and in fact was backhandedly accusing her of sacralizing or desacralizing, I should say, 9/11 territory, which was not the point of this controversy at all. So I thought that Nancy Pelosi's response was in fact quite shameful.
And now she's being attacked for criticizing Stephen Miller for his fierce anti-immigrant views, being told that because she's talking about Stephen Miller in the administration, she is singling out a Jewish member of the administration, which proves she is anti-Semitic. We had on Dr. David Glosser, who is Stephen Miller's uncle, his sister's son, who criticized his nephew for his extremist anti-immigrant views.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, does that mean that Ilhan Omar can only criticize Ilhan Omar? That would be the natural result of that. She's not criticizing Stephen Miller for his Jewishness. She's criticizing Stephen Miller for the positions that he holds, and that's completely within the boundaries of American political discourse.
So what does this mean for Muslims around the country? Ilhan Omar says she herself has faced this spike in death threats against her. President Trump pinning the tweet of the video where he's juxtaposed the 9/11 attacks with Ilhan Omar. We know about the attacks on the Tree of Life synagogue, the 11 Jewish worshippers that were killed, with the killer citing the same words that President Trump used, invaders, invasion. President Trump's words and what he tweets has meaning.
Absolutely. In fact, there was a study that was performed last year, that was published last year, that said that there's a direct correlation with Donald Trump's anti-Muslim tweets and the rise in anti-Muslim hate crimes. So Twitter and hate crimes, unfortunately, are connected. And they're not only connected in the United States, they're connected internationally as well. That's what the study found. And in fact, not only is what Donald Trump tweeted completely disturbing, but it's also coming within weeks of 50 people being killed in New Zealand in 2 different mosques by a man who also felt himself connected to Donald Trump and his ideology.
And let's not forget what the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern responded to President Trump when he asked what can he do when he called the Prime Minister, and she said, respect the Muslim community.
All right, please support Representative Ilhan Omar as she is facing death threats and a dangerous hate campaign from Donald Trump and right-wing fascist attacks. That's Representative Ilhan Omar. Hashtag support Rep Ilhan Omar. All right. If you want to learn more about that, go to democracynow.org. I'm going to go ahead and play this clip from climate scientist, activist Bill McKibben from 350.org on his new book, Falter. Has the human game began to play itself out? After that, we'll be joined with Brittany with our upcoming events and actions. Of course, we'll be joined with Dr. Uma talking about the cannabinoid system and the benefits of cannabis. And then finally, if I have a chance, a clip from the actions this week from Extinction Rebellion. To learn more about Extinction Rebellion, go to xrebellion.org. I believe it's xrebellion.org or exrebellion.org. And on their actions that have taken place this week. But let's go ahead and play this clip from Bill McKibben, Falter.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thousands are taking to the streets in London today to demand radical action to combat the climate crisis. Protesters with the group Extinction Rebellion have set up encampments and roadblocks across central London and say they'll stay in the streets for at least a week. It's just the beginning of a series of global actions that'll unfold in the coming days as activists around the world raise the alarm about government inaction in the face of the growing climate catastrophe. A spokesperson with Extinction Rebellion told The Guardian, governments prioritize the short-term interests of the economic elites, so to get their attention, we have to disrupt the economy, they said. London protests come just days after school children around the globe left school again on Friday for the weekly Strike for Climate. The movement was started last year when, at the time, 15-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg stood alone outside the Swedish parliament to demand her government do more to combat climate change. Now, kids around the globe have answered her call with their own weekly strikes. The esteemed journal Science published an open letter from scientists supporting the global youth protests last week. It reads in part, quote, as scientists and scholars who've recently initiated similar letters of support in our countries, we call for our colleagues across all disciplines and from the entire world to support these young climate protesters. We declare their concerns are justified and supported by the best available science. The current measures for protecting the climate and biosphere are deeply inadequate, Science wrote. This all comes as the push for the Green New Deal continues to build momentum in the United States. The deal, backed by Congressmember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey, seeks to transform the U.S. economy through funding renewable energy while ending U.S. carbon dioxide emissions by 2030. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted last week, "The far right loves to drum up fear and resistance to immigrants. But have you ever noticed they never talk about what's causing people to flee their homes in the first place? Perhaps that's because they'd be forced to confront one major factor fueling global migration, climate change." We turn now to a climate activist and journalist who's been on the front lines of the fight for the planet for decades. 30 years ago, in 1989, Bill McKibben wrote The End of Nature, the first book about climate change for a general audience. He's just published a new book. It's titled Falter: Has the Human Game Begun to Play Itself Out? Bill McKibben joins us here in our New York studio. Welcome back to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us, Bill.
It's always good to be with you.
Falter: Has the human game begun to play itself out?
You know, 30 years ago when I started writing about this, it was a distant threat. We were issuing a warning. Scientists knew that as we burned coal and gas and oil, we were putting carbon in the atmosphere. They knew the molecular structure of CO2 trapped heat. We didn't know how fast and how hard it was going to pinch. The story of the last 30 years, or one of the stories of the last 30 years, is that it pinched a hell of a lot harder and faster than even we feared. The things we're seeing now, half the sea ice in the summer Arctic gone, the ocean 30% more acidic, half the coral reefs under siege. These were things we thought would happen 50, 60, 70 years from now, but the planet turned out to be very finely balanced. So that was one of the surprises of those 30 years. The other surprise was how little reaction there was in our political system, how slowly it's moved. In essence, we've done almost nothing as a world to grapple with the biggest problem that we've ever wandered into. The two pieces of really good news are, one, that the engineers have done their job just about as well as the politicians have done theirs badly. The price of the solar panels dropped 90%. We have the technology in a way that we didn't even a decade ago to know where we could turn if we wanted to. And we've seen this rise of remarkable movements over the last decade. There were periods of time when I felt like, have you ever had one of those nightmares where you're trying to communicate to everybody that something bad is going on, but words won't come out of your mouth or they can't hear you or something? There was a period when I felt like that. I no longer feel lonely like that anymore. There are millions of people around the world engaged in this fight. We'll see if that's enough power to overcome the wealth and influence of the fossil fuel industry in time or not.
So talk about how you've divided your book into these 4 sections.
Sure.
The size of the board, leverage, the name of the game, and an outside chance.
The question that haunts me, and has since I wrote The End of Nature, is whether the thing that we're doing now is so large that it fundamentally alters our prospects as a civilization. Climate change is the best example of that. And climate change by now has already reached the point where, as I say in the first section, it changes the size of the board on which we're playing this game. Forever, since humans came out of Africa, we've been expanding the board on which we play the game, finding new places, spreading out. Now things are contracting. Now people are beginning to worry very much about the cities that they live that are near the coasts. Now we're seeing, perhaps you saw the story in yesterday's Times, about how climate change has become the main driver for those immigrants having to leave their homes in Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, not because they want to, because there's such a deep drought that they can't grow anything there anymore. Those are the opening salvos in what's going to be a century of shrinkage. I mean, think about what we saw in California last fall. Literally, in an hour, a city called Paradise turned literally into hell. Everybody who watched it could imagine dying in a car, trapped in a road as they tried to get out of a forest fire. If California, the place we've always identified with a kind of golden ease, is now in a paranoid sense of fear for much of the year as they look over their shoulder for the next fire, well, that's another sense in which this board has begun to shrink. The second part of the book is more political. I tried to answer for my own purposes the question of why we did so little for so long. And I think it has everything to do with the ascendant political ideology of this period, this sense that laissez-faire capitalism, that markets alone would solve problems. That happened to be the dominant political philosophy in the most important country in the world at precisely the most important moment. It's no accident that people like the Koch brothers, our biggest political players, are also oil and gas barons. I mean, they understood climate change as a threat both to their business and to their ideological worldview. Because, of course, if we're going to solve it, we're going to have to take joint action as societies to do so.
All right, check out that clip. Go to democracynow.org, an interview with Bill McKibben on his new book, Falter, Has the Human Game Begun to Play Itself Out? And he also talked about in what she was just getting into, the manipulation and corruption of the Koch brothers on our politics. The wealthiest family in the country, who spend about $400 to $500 million a year during our elections to corrupt the Republican Party and some Democrats. And we put this in a video with an activist who calls the show occasionally, Jennifer Hines from Extinction Radio. And we created a video off the last article written by Bill McKibben. It's called Life on a Shrinking Planet. I really recommend that you check it out on YouTube. It's up to almost 9,000 views on YouTube. It's called Life on a Shrinking Planet. Life on a Shrinking Planet. And I thank Kevin Buchanan and my homeboy Dante. We put that together. It's a great video. It's a great video. You'll enjoy it. I recommend that you send it out to your family and friends. It will help them, educate them on the climate crisis and what we're up against, and basically puts everything that's happened in this movement within the past 30 years into an hour. And you'll see all the climate catastrophes going on around the planet and why it's so important for you to get involved. That video is called Life on a Shrinking Planet. You can check it out on YouTube. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get into our upcoming events and action segment with Brittany. Brittany, are you there?
I'm here, Dougie. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for calling the show, Brittany. We always love to have you here as a part of the Voices of Dissent team. So if you could, give us our upcoming events and actions. We got about 7 to 8 minutes, and then we'll be joined with Dr. Uma. Go ahead. Knock it on out.
All right. No problem. As of April 21st on Sunday, there will be Justice in the Covington Square at downtown Covington, Georgia from 3 p.m. until 5 p.m. East Metro for Social Justice is hosting an event to kick off the 2020 election. There will be many speakers with topics such as voter suppression, killings of unarmed black men, Rockdale jail deaths, and many other topics. Please join us in opening this campaign season with a bang on Sunday, April 21st. On Monday, April 22nd, South DeKalb showing of Healing Justice film at Bethel on General Free Will Baptist will be held from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. Dear friends, please join participants from the CAB, NAACP Criminal Justice Committee at Bethel Baptist Church, East Lake Commons, and more at our first South DeKalb showing and discussion on the film Healing Justice on Monday, April 22nd from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. This inspiring film, which uses poetry, dance, and individual testimony, has helped me and others begin to imagine a replacement for the criminal punishment system. See links below for a preview and for other information on the film and on restorative justice. Also on Monday, April 22nd, send newsletter to 160 prisoners will be at the Teardown from 8 p.m. until 11 p.m. Help anarchist Black Cross team up with IWOC to get out this month's newsletter to over 160 Georgia prisoners. Help fold, stuff, stamp, and seal letters. On Wednesday, April 24th, Sexual Health Resource Fair with Planned Parenthood will be at Mother Bar and Kitchen from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. You got sexual health questions, need to find a resource provider, maybe want to try out an open mic, look no further. The Southern Fried Queer Pride and Planned Parenthood are teaming up for a sexual health resource fair featuring local resource providers, organizations, support groups, and more, all happening from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. at the Mother Bar Kitchen. On Thursday, April 24th, Junks, a Lantern community discussion will be at Mother Bar Kitchen as well from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. Join Southern Fried Queer, Pride, and Latinos in the Deep South for JUNTX's A Latin Community Discussion happening on Thursday, April 25th. There will also be a conversation on Afro Latin Dad from 6:30 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. Join the Latino Community Fund of Georgia, Georgia Association and Latino elected officials, Los Vecinos de Buford Highway, Asian American, Advancing Justice, and community members for a conversation on Afro-Latin Dad and a discussion on a part of our Latino culture that is often overlooked in mainstream media. Also on Thursday, April 25th, there will be activist meet and greet for April at Little 5 Point Community Center from 7:30 p.m. until 9 p.m. Are you outraged by injustice but don't know what to do? New to activism or looking to get more connected? You want to support your community in solidarity and love? You are then invited to join activists recruiting, organizing, and mentoring in Atlanta Aroma for our Metro Atlanta meet and greet every last Thursday of the month. These are informal and semi-structured networking events to support the local activist community in ATL. Our relationships are the most important resource we have to win the world we need. You can expect to participate in activist speak, branding, hear more about it, and what it really means to organize for justice and meet some of the folks on the front lines already doing the work needed to transform society and transition into our better world. On Friday, April 26th, Atlanta Human Rights Cities Conveyan will be at Arcs Exchange from 5 p.m. until April 28th at 1 p.m. Building and sustaining human rights cities together in the South. Join human rights leaders to explore the human rights city organizing model to bring human rights home. We are working to popularize people-centered human rights that is intentionally both intersectional, that is culturally working to build broad alliances across diverse groups of people and organizations, and transformational aim and fundamentally reordering power relations of society to center the leadership and priorities of frontline communities. On Saturday, April 27th, Independent Bookstore Day Cherry's grand reopening will be from 10 a.m. until 7 p.m. Although we plan to reopen as soon as possible after our move on April 1st, we will have our grand reopening party on Saturday, April 27th from 10 a.m. until 7 p.m. for Independent Bookstore. Join us as a special guest for our party to kick off Cherry's future. Our surprise group support meeting is to be announced from 2 p.m. until 4 p.m. on Saturday, April 27th. On Sunday, April 28th, Black Women Walking ATL will be held at Atlanta Beltline from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. Black Women Walking ATL is a partnership of Hawaiian Mata and Sister Care Alliance. Again, this event is at 10 a.m. on March 10, 2019. On Monday, April 29th, the home team exploring Mercedes-Benz Stadium Impact on Vine City will be at Manuel's Tavern from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. Join Georgia Ethics Watchdog for a screening of the home team, a documentary film about the residents in the shadow of Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium. A panel discussion with the film's producers and participants will follow the screening. The event is free, but donations are strongly encouraged. And on April 30th, Tuesday, there will be Clean Energy Lunch and Reinventing Power screening at Center for Civic Innovation from 6:30 p.m. until 9 p.m. Join us as we round out our celebrations of Earth Month with the official launch of the Clean Energy Civic Dinner Series, sponsored by the Georgia Sierra Club and in partnership with a partnership from Southern Equity and Environment Georgia. Also on Tuesday, April 30th, Paris, Pittsburgh is free showing at Manuel's Tavern from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. Don't miss 350 Atlanta screening of Terry So Pittsburgh, a new National Geographic film. On April 30th.
Hey, Brittany. All right, that's cool. You wrapped up the week. Good job. You did an amazing job. If people want to learn...
Thanks.
Thank you. If people want to learn more about these upcoming events, they can go to activismatlanta.com, activismatlanta.com. Thank you, Brittany. I know you had more to announce, but you went all the way through Sunday, so that's perfect. So everybody knows what's coming up this week. We don't know what we'd do without you. Please continue to stay a part of the team. Don't go anywhere. We love you.
Absolutely. You don't have anything to worry about.
All right, cool. All right, so have a good weekend, Brittany. We'll be in touch, and hit me up anytime you have a flat tire.
Thanks.
All right, love you. All right, peace. All right, that was Brittany with our upcoming events and action report. For more information on any of those events, for details, go to activismatlanta.com, activismatlanta.com. And you can also go to voicesofdissent.org, voicesofdissent.org. And in regards to the last segment that we played before her, if you want to learn more about the corruption of the Koch brothers, check out our last show last week. Go to voicesofdissent.org, voicesofdissent.org. You can also learn more about the activist calendar. If you go to the Aroma tab that's off to the left on the homepage, hit Aroma on the homepage of voicesofdissent.org. All right, right about now, I'm glad to be joined with our highlighted special guest of the week, and that is Dr. Uma. Dr. Uma, are you there?
Yes, I am, Dougie. Thank you so much. Happy 420 to everybody out there.
Exactly. Had to have you on here on 420.
Yes.
Dr. Uma has been a regular guest on this program. I can't believe that we're moving into the fourth year of Voices of Dissent. She played an integral role in the base of this program, which is to end prohibition, to end the criminalization of cannabis. She is a doctor. She has an upcoming event coming up in Thailand. It is the first and largest in Southeast Asia on medical cannabis, and it's a conference. And people can learn more if they go to totalhealthcarethc.com, totalhealthcarethc.com. So please go to that website, learn about this upcoming event that she's going to be speaking at. And Dr. Uma talks about, I went to one of her events that was sponsored by Peachtree NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, which is also a sponsor of this program. And she talked about the endocannabinoid system as a doctor and how cannabis is a benefit to our health. We have an endocannabinoid system and receptors that use the qualities of THC, which Homo sapiens or humans have been using for thousands and thousands of years as a plant for healing. So if you could talk about the endocannabinoid system a little bit, and then go into this conference and just the state of legalization in the United States on this 420 holiday.
Well, thank you so much, Dougie, for having me. And as you say, we've grown, and I really, truly love you, and thank you for all the education that you're doing. And that's been one of my key missions has been to change the stigma and for everybody in the world to know of the endocannabinoid system. And I'm doing it through education. And you mentioned something that's so integral is that Homo sapiens. And what's fascinating is that this endocannabinoid system has evolved, over 600 million years. And the healthcare providers in the United States really know little to nothing, and it's not being taught. But honestly, we've come a long way, and here we are in 2019, and we're looking at more than 30 states that have a medical program and approximately 10 states that have had a legalized program. And so we're coming a long way since Prohibition in 1937. And you mentioned the endocannabinoid system, and most people don't know what this is because it is very innate within all of us. And as the word says, if we take it apart, endo means within, cannabinoid means it has something to do with cannabis, and it has a system. And what we've learned is that we have receptors in our body, we have receptors in the brain, we've got receptors in the immune system. We've got receptors everywhere, even on our skin, in our eyes, in our brain, every part of our organ system. And what we've learned is that right now we are also facing an opioid crisis and people dying from opioid overdoses throughout the United States. And I call cannabis the exit drug, Dougie. And we've helped so many patients to help them get off of their medications, their pharmaceuticals, their opioids, alcohol, nicotine, and improve their quality of life. And I'm so happy that Georgia now has a medical program as well. And hopefully this will expand to legalization at some point.
When my dad died of colon cancer, he requested towards the end when he said, hey Doug, do you still use cannabis? And I said, absolutely. And he said, I'd like to try because I've heard that it can help me have an appetite again and have and actually help me in healing from this cancer. And it did just that. Could you talk about just medical marijuana, how it has been a breakthrough for not only cancer patients, but for children suffering from all kinds of different illnesses, not only just the THC, but the CBD, and how many people around the world are learning about the benefits of cannabis seriously, not just as a alternative to alcohol or other drugs for, but just the actual health benefits of cannabis.
Absolutely. So I look at this in multiple modes right now. Initially, my patients come to me, Dougie, for treatment, and they've been with me, and I've been practicing cannabinoid medicine for 7 years. And in my population of patients, it's 18, and my oldest is 98. And we know this medicine has been around, and I'm originally from India, and it's part of our culture as part of Ayurvedic medicine. And Ayurvedic medicine means Ayu means life, and Veda means knowledge. And they used this medicine in Ayurvedic medicine years ago for epilepsy and seizures and nausea and appetite and even cholera and so many other illnesses, including addiction, alcoholism, and mental health issues. And you mentioned CBD. So what people have to understand is that this plant has over 1,000 different chemicals. We've got identified at this point over 140 different cannabinoids, and there's a spectrum, is how I like to look at it, as the most intoxicating, which is THC. I defer from using that word psychoactive because it has a very negative connotation, and I like to use the word non-intoxicating when we describe CBD, because when you consume CBD, it relaxes you, it makes you feel less anxious, it helps you to feel more comfortable and help people feel that they're not having any type of seizures or decreasing their seizures, to me, that is still a form of medicine, and it's not psychoactive, but it has a non-intoxicating effect. So I like to use those words, and we are using it for children. They're using it for children with many types of tumors, with epilepsy, nausea. The treatment of many cancer drugs, as you mentioned, is the nausea, the vomiting, the loss of appetite, and many people are dying because of the side effects. And what we want people to know is that cannabis can be used in conjunction with their other medications. And I also call it an exit drug because we have patients that when they do die, we're improving their quality of life, we're extending their quality of life, and to be able to let them die with dignity, I think that's very important. And also for the caregivers of the patients, they're also, this is very important to see the person that they love to be able to die with some peace.
Well, we really appreciate all that you do as a doctor and teaching more and more people about the health benefits of cannabis. You have this upcoming event that's coming up in Vietnam, a conference. People can learn.
Thailand.
Where is it?
It's in Thailand.
I mean Thailand. I'm sorry.
Yes. Oh no, it's okay. It's in Thailand.
So people can go to learn more about this upcoming conference in Thailand at totalhealthcarethc.com. totalhealthcarethc.com. Are there any other websites or information that people can learn more about the work that you do, Dr. Uma?
Well, we're going to be we're on Twitter and Facebook at Uplifting Health and Wellness. We're going to be doing some live streaming throughout the whole week. I leave on April 24th, and I'm actually traveling with my family, Douggie, with my father, who's 85, and my son, who's 30. And we're going to be there till May 8th, and we're very, very excited.
Any other social media handles you want to give us? Any YouTube links? Any Facebook, Twitter?
We're on YouTube. We're Uma Danabalan. We're Uplifting Health and Wellness. And I can send you a bunch of links that we can send to your link as well. And we use 3 words, Dougie: educate, embrace, and empower. And I used to say reach 1, teach 10. As you teach one person, let them go out and reach 10 people. And please remember, cannabis has killed nobody. The government has patent number 6630507, and it was prescribed by doctors in the United States from 1850 to 1942 and listed in the pharmacopoeia.
Excellent. Hey, thank you, Dr. Uma. Thanks for all you do. If people want to learn more about Dr. Uma, go to this Dr. Uma. That's Dr. UMA. Dr. Uma. Dr. UMA. Check her out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of the weekend. Happy 420, and keep up the great work explaining and teaching people the benefits of cannabis. Have a great weekend.
Okay, please remember, don't drive impaired. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you. All right, peace. All right, that wraps up the show, folks. We want to thank our sponsors. That is the NAACP Clayton County Branch, MADS, the Metro Atlanta Democratic Socialists of America, MADSA.GA, NewGeorgiaProject.org. Let's see, New Life Presbyterian Church, New Life Pres, ATL.com, Abjuware.com, Black Lives Matter Atlanta, Refuse Fascism, ATL.org, StreetGroomers.org, AtlantaJWJ.org, Peachtree Normal, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.org, PeachtreeNormal.org, CannabisRadio.com, AFSC.org, GeorgiaPeace.org, Georgia Peace and Justice Coalition, GeorgiaPeace.org, RJActionCenter.org, SilversDelight.com, that's Silver's Delight Korean Restaurant in East Point, and Justice for All Coalition. Thank you. That wraps up the show. Everybody have a great weekend. And want to hear the archive, go to voicesofdissent.org. Be safe. Peace and love.